More reports coming from Israel about Hamas using all of the weapons that are being left by the IDF or haven't detonated inside of the Gaza Strip. So we had this one report here in The Marker saying that the economy of detonation, they called it, the IDF left Hamas with explosive worth tens of millions of dollars. According to this article here, the Air Force estimates the number of unexploded ordnance at least 3,000. They're saying for Hamas, it is a treasure trove, but the IDF does not provide soldiers with a mapping of the unexploded ordnance. And the IDF are saying we are making every effort to deal with the unexploded ordnance. Now, unexploded ordnance, we spoke about this several days back when the armed wing of the PIJ, Saray al-Quds, detonated an MK-84, the biggest bomb that Israel lands on Gaza, a 1-ton bomb that Israel lands on civilians. They found one that wasn't exploded, and they exploded it in a group of Israeli terror forces inside of the Gaza Strip, taking all of them down. There was an explosion that everyone heard, even in Israel, and that eventually was, according to the Palestinian resistance, an actual MK-84, the full MK-84 unexploded. And according to this report and to Israeli estimates, they have 3,000 of these now, meaning the Palestinian resistance now has capabilities more than ever before. And that's being confirmed by people inside of Israel. One of them was the deputy major general in reserve in Israel, Yisrael Ziv. He said that Hamas increased its capabilities and its fighting mechanisms inside of Gaza. And if we allow more troops to go into the Gaza Strip, we will risk having very big losses. This is a confirmation coming from people who were major generals in the Israeli army. This is a major general in reserve, confirming what the IDF chief of staff currently stated when he warned Benjamin Netanyahu that we're facing a horror scene. Well, what is described in Israel as a horror show if they continue and expand the operation inside of the Gaza Strip. And the IDF chief of staff, he outright said, the priority is to get the prisoners of war back, then achieve victory. According to Netanyahu, achieving victory is number one, getting the prisoners of war back is number two. Now, what's not helping is the fact that the Palestinian resistance is releasing more videos of the prisoners of war inside of the Gaza Strip, criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu in what is genuinely appearing to be a genuine video. Like, you know, you might think, okay, these people are held by Hamas. Hamas are telling them, say this and that. At the end of the day, they're talking normally. Clearly, they have up-to-date information about the recent developments. They're clearly watching television or having access to internet because they know the latest moves by the Israeli government. They know how active the Israeli streets are because they're describing them in their videos. And this one didn't really help. And the protests in Israel started to become more intense after this video was published, because the Israeli population waits for Hamas to publish a video, by the way. Why? Because one of these people in the video attempted to commit suicide. Hamas spoke about him several weeks back. They said one of the Israeli prisoners of war attempted to commit suicide and we rescued him. Here he comes lying down next to another guy who's a prisoner of war in the video, talking about what is this war? Why are we continuing? This man is putting us to die here for no reason, asking for the people to continue, and again applying more pressure on the Israeli public, because everyone in Israel is listening to these people, is seeing them, they're believing them more than Benjamin Netanyahu, and they're outright sharing their situation day by day in Gaza, held by Hamas. And there's simply a very straightforward solution to all of that, the same solution that was there one day after October the 7th, even on October the 7th itself, which is get a deal to release the Palestinians from the Israeli prisons so that you can get the Israeli prisoners back. However, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu had different plans. Benjamin Netanyahu had plans to occupy Gaza, to expand a war, to have an endless war that would continue up until his term ends, and then potentially reach a deal when his situation is secure. Now, the Pakistani Prime Minister PM Shahbaz says that they achieved victory. He said that they won in this war because there was a ceasefire being declared. The Indian officials confirmed that there was indeed a ceasefire. The Indian foreign minister announced the ceasefire agreement with Pakistan. According to multiple reports, there was a breach in the Kashmir area, not surprisingly. However, both sides are saying that there is a ceasefire. India is confirming that there is a ceasefire, and the Pakistani Prime Minister is confirming that there is a ceasefire. But the Pakistani Prime Minister is saying that this is actually a victory. This is a victory. The Bunyan Marsus operation, or strong wall operation, has been a very effective campaign because it took down the effort of the Indian forces and Modi's forces to conduct operations without having any sort of response. Now, of course, India, from their perspective, they carried out the operation after an attack was conducted against the Indians that they blamed on Pakistan, and then they started to target certain locations. Pakistan started to respond back, and they were very effective in their response, especially in terms of air capabilities with the J-10s and with the Turkish drones. Now, in his speech, it was very interesting that the actual Prime Minister of Pakistan, he mentioned these countries. He mentioned Turkey and he mentioned China too. And he mentioned the people of Pakistan, people on social media as well, saying that Turkey, we won't forget their support for us. And also Chinese, so the Chinese leadership and people and the Turkish leadership and people who are supporting them, because according to him, our Shaheens took down the Rafales. Now, the reports previously said that, well, it was actually the J-10 that took down the Rafale. However, the Pakistani Prime Minister is saying that it was actually the Turkish drones that also took part in taking down the French Rafales that are used by the Indian Air Force. However, this ceasefire or deal, temporary deal, that Donald Trump is trying to take all of the credit for, although there were many countries that tried to reach a deal between both of them, including China, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, many other countries too. Trump is trying to take all of the credit. The problem is the tensions will continue. Why? Because there are still disputes between India and Pakistan, in particular in Kashmir. And so long as there is no solution for Kashmir, tensions will remain. Either a referendum for the people of Kashmir or a deal, an agreement, a proper agreement that will protect the rights of the people of Kashmir, an agreement that will be taken by India and Pakistan. That's on the Indian-Pakistani front. Now, when it comes to Israel and Donald Trump and the deal with Iran, many reports in Israel are saying that Trump is headed towards a deal, and that Benjamin Netanyahu, according to one report in Israel, is the only man standing in his way. So there was an article in one of the Israeli newspapers, Ynet, saying that Donald Trump, he wants to reach a deal, but Benjamin Netanyahu is the main person opposing this deal. This article was published by a man called Nadav Eyal. The Trump administration wants a new Middle East and feels that Netanyahu is standing in its way. The brief honeymoon between the US president and the prime minister is over. Washington and Jerusalem are in crisis. Trump wants to return from his trip to the region with a breakthrough that will free the hostages. Thanks to him, And where exactly is the government in the serious aviation crisis that is taking place here? Okay. In this report, he's saying that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, the United States and Israel, they indeed have a crisis. That's, of course, another report coming from Israel, from analysts inside of Israel, confirming that there is a crisis for the people who are questioning it or doubting the seriousness of this crisis. And Donald Trump indeed is on the way of making a deal with Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu tries to hinder or has tried to hinder this for very many times. However, without any success so far. Why? Because Donald Trump got rid of Mike Waltz, a man who was coordinating with Benjamin Netanyahu and trying to push for an attack against Iran. We've had the recent moves and statements like the Secretary of Defense canceling a visit to Israel, the statements from Witkoff that Israel will pay a heavier price, Huckabee saying that Israel doesn't have a right to interfere basically with any deals that we have with Yemen, and the fact that, guess what? Israel wanted to split Yemen from Gaza. Yemen ended up splitting the US from Israel. This is what happened. And Yemen is still targeting Israel, but without US support this time. These things are happening on the ground. Whether the US will change it in the future, make a different move, do something else, that's a separate story. But the bottom line is Yemen is attacking Israel and the equation changed. And the equation is the United States is no longer supporting Israel in the Red Sea. And that's primarily thanks to the effective attacks of Ansarullah against all of the aircraft carriers. And that could also indicate that USS Harry S. Truman could have had serious damage, way more serious than what the Americans are publishing, by the way. All of these things are very important. And despite the fact that Donald Trump is trying to reach a deal with Iran, that doesn't mean that Iran is naive or the Yemenis are naive. As a matter of fact, the Yemenis said, if they try and attack us again, there any excuse, we'll be attacking them immediately. Everything is prepared. And they're still approaching the United States administration with the same tone. Is Iran naive? Iran is not naive. Recently, they published this footage here, a full video of them, a recent video of them taking footage of the aircraft carriers in the Red Sea, in the region, all of the aircraft carriers of the United States, without the United States declaring that they have been monitored by Iran. They're doing that simultaneously with them having talks with the United States about reaching a deal. What is Iran saying here? Well, Iran is saying, it's nice that you want to reach a deal. We want to have a deal too, a fair, good deal. But we're seeing what you're doing. We know where you're going. We know your moves in the region, and you're under our radar. And this is not the first time that Iran published footage of them monitoring American warships in the region and aircraft carriers. In 2023, just after the beginning of the Al-Aqsa flood, they also published a full video of them targeting the aircraft carrier that the United States sent at the time, alongside its fleet, any other ships that are linked to it, and the United States forces in the region. Accurate information from drones very close to the aircraft carriers. Again, with the United States either ignoring or not reporting or not seeing this monitoring that's coming from Iran. Now, this shows you that the Iranians, they indeed want to reach a deal. They want to reach a deal, but they're not going to reach a deal by being naive to the United States and what it has done in the past not just in the past 2 years, that's been highlighted because of the genocide and the genocide support, but in the past several decades. Iran knew very well that they were next in line to have a war. When the Bush administration was talking about the new Middle East at the time, it included seven countries that they wanted to conduct wars against. And one of those countries was Iran. One of them, funny enough, was actually Saudi Arabia. The plan included Saudi Arabia, splitting Saudi Arabia to 2 states and then a holy city It included the whole region being changed completely. Now, Iran, from their perspective, they have been preparing from that time. They saw what happened in Afghanistan, they saw what happened in Iraq, and they saw what happened in the whole region. And from that time, and even before that, the Iranians were preparing with very strategic capabilities and very strong air defense systems. They've been slowly doing that and escalating their preparedness so that if it reaches this moment, they have leverage and they have the capability to conduct effective attacks against the United States in any area in the region. Now, the interesting change that happened recently is the fact that Iran, in a way, escalated the tone with the United States simultaneously with the peaceful talks to reach a nuclear agreement, and despite the United States making peaceful comments towards Iran. Iran said that any base in the United States will be attacked if an attack is conducted against Iran. So they're saying that regardless of whether it's Israel or the United States, and regardless of the fact that these bases are used or not, we will be attacking every base in the region. At the time, the senior figure in the Iranian army told the neighboring countries, to our Arab countries next to us, you are our brothers. However, in case we're attacked, the United States bases in your region will be attacked. And this has created a new equation. The equations that are being created now by Iran and by Yemen are not in the favor of the United States, nor in the favor of Israel. And people need to recognize this. What Yemen is doing now with the new equation against Israel, having not only naval siege, but also an aerial siege on Israel, and despite them escalating the siege to be an aerial siege too, the United States withdrew from the equation. This is a new equation. This is a new deal. This is a new time for Yemen. And Yemen, indeed, like they stated, have split the United States administration from Israel. And likewise with Iran. From an Iranian perspective, they're happy to talk about a nuclear deal. They actually are not a hostile country. Iran wants to be a normal country dealing with the whole world. However, it's constantly been met by arrogant hostility from the United States administration, from the EU, from hostile, arrogant countries who want to impose their will, either the economic will or political will or security will on them, so that they can be under their thumb, under their system, so that these countries can't have any sovereignty. However, the United States is clearly seeing that slowly all of this is changing with the rise of the BRICS, with the rise of Russian power and Chinese power, Iranian power, regional and global players too. All of this is changing. And there's so much they can do to impose any sanctions on them, because the BRICS as an organization, as a group of countries, already created a mechanism to have a backdoor, a way out of any sanctions that are coming from the United States. And that was clearly visible from the VE Day celebrated in Russia several days back. The Chinese president was there, several leaders were there, the Egyptian president was there after he refused to meet Trump and still hasn't met Trump. He went to Russia for VE. All of these things are important, alongside Sahel country leaders as well, who recently merged their countries together after they expelled the French colonial powers from there. All of these developments are very important. The United States is seeing this shift, and it doesn't matter how much Donald Trump wants to ignore the facts that are happening on the ground. He will have to realize at one point, with lack of popular support from the American population, with lack of serious capability to conduct anything effective to a level where the United States can impose its will, either for the sake of Israel or for the sake of the United States, they're unable to do anything really against the will of the people. And they have tried. Donald Trump said clearly, we gave them hard blows, right? They carried out many strikes against Yemen. But did Yemen submit? Did Yemen surrender? No. And as a matter of fact, and thankfully, it has been revealed that there were even talks from over a year and a half ago, from just after the United States started the operation against them, because they didn't necessarily want to go on all of this campaign for the sake of Israel, if they can do it by just talking or threatening. The Yemenis said clearly the United States came with very high demands initially, therefore there wasn't a deal. But now we reached a stage, especially with Donald Trump seeing the level of arrogance of Benjamin Netanyahu against him. He told him, we will give up the whole thing in the Red Sea and you can go and face their wrath. And that's what's happening. Now, more of these developments are going to be revealed after Trump's visit. Trump is expected to visit Saudi Arabia. Trump is expected to visit Qatar. And in the meantime, there are reports of serious pressure coming from the United States administration for Israel to reach a deal when Trump is here, because Trump, again, he wants to be viewed, as the peacemaker. He's looking for a Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to be seen as a person, who gets the deals done. And Netanyahu isn't really playing ball with him, because both of them have quite similar personalities: egocentric, megalomaniac, psychopathic, narcissistic traits. So that's a clash, apart from the things that are happening on the ground. However, after Donald Trump comes, there will be even more clarity as to where things are going in the next coming months and in the next coming years.